The theme of the film, and the theme really of the evening, this evening, is that Colombia is changing. It's become a more prosperous country, as you all know, over recent years. Levels of poverty overall have been coming down. And there, as you all know, I'm sure, there are prospects of a peace agreement with the FARC guerrillas and possibly others. But still, there are many, many children and young people who are excluded from this prosperity and still find their rights threatened by violence. And the theme of this evening really is, what do the changes that are happening in Colombia, what do they mean for these children and young people? So, and indeed, what does it mean for the work of children of the Andes? Who better to ask than the children themselves? So that's what we've done in the film. Then, after that, the next way that you're going to get to hear about our work in Colombia is, I'm delighted to say, by listening to Heidi, who is our field officer in Cali, and she works with our partners in the southern zone, the southern half of Colombia. We've arbitrarily, sort of rather imperiously, divided Colombia up into south, which Heidi takes care of, and then you're also going to hear from Natalia, who is our field officer in Bogota, and she works with our partners in Bogota and the north and the center of Colombia. So that's what's going to happen. They're going to talk to you in more detail about the role we're playing in working with some of Colombia's most excluded children and young people, those children who are most at risk, how we're working with them to ensure that they can have a part in what we hope will be an ever more prosperous, an ever more equal, and an ever more peaceful Colombia. After that, there'll be time for you to ask questions about our work and what we've been doing over the last year and what our plans are for the coming year. So that's how it's going to go. Before we get onto that, I wanted to just give you a couple of highlights about our work over the last year, 2014. One of the things we want to do at Children of the Andes, we've always wanted to do and still do, is help children speak for themselves, help children claim their rights for themselves, not tell them what they should want, not tell them how they should live, but empower them to say what they want and to speak out when they feel their rights are threatened. You may remember, if you were here last year, and I'm glad to say lots of you were, that's one reason I wanted the lights up, so I can tell. I'm glad to say that the partner one that I spoke about last year, Corpo Latin, who run a helpline for children at risk in Cali. I'm extremely glad to say that over this year, they've been working with our support, not only to run a helpline, but also to work with children and families and communities, particularly in schools, to help children understand their rights, to help children understand their right not to live in fear, not to be subject to violence, not to be subject to neglect, to go to school, to have healthcare, etc., etc. And also to speak out, as I said, about their lives and when they feel threatened. This work with children in schools, it is hoped, leads children to actually say, look, I'm having problems at home, or I'm being bullied at school, or somebody in my community is trying to get me to join an armed gang. The goal in 2014 was that around 600 children would call Corpo Latin's helpline and ask for that sort of support from the helpline. In the event, 1,200 children nearly called, which really, in some ways you might think is a shocking thing, because there's twice as many children in some sort, facing some sort of risks. But at the same time, it means that there's twice as many children who have the knowledge and the confidence to speak out and to ask for help and make sure that adults are there to defend their rights. So I think that's one of the great highlights of what we've done this year. A couple of other highlights I wanted to mention. One of the other things that we want to do at Children of the Andes is to work on neglected issues which really threaten the rights of children in Colombia but are not receiving very much attention. One of the ways that we seek to do this is to make sure when we start working with a partner on a given issue, that through our work, the issue on which they work should be taken up by others. And it should be addressed by more people, not just us, not just our partner. And so that more children and more young people who are facing these risks that this issue might bring to them can receive support to defend their rights. Often, the other people who we're talking about, the people who we want to take up the issue and to work on the issue, are government entities. Institutions who have primary obligation, duty to defend children's rights, but also institutions who have resources to do so. So it's often our aim to work, it's always our aim, to work in conjunction with what Colombia and the Colombian state is doing to defend children's rights. And I want to give you just two quick examples of how this is working for us and for children we work with. The Albergue Infantil Mamo Yolanda, who many of you will have heard of before, we've been working with them for several years, many years in fact, in Bogota. They work with children who have been in care, who've been taken into care because of abuse or neglect, often children who've ended up spending some time on the streets and have been taken into care, and then return to their families. Often what's happened in the past is that this process has been unsuccessful, and that the problems within the family and the child was facing were not resolved, so the child ends up back on the streets and then back in care. And every time that happens, it becomes more and more difficult for the child to live a semblance of a life which they have reason to value. This program that we've been working on with the Albergue, which has been extremely successful in making sure that this merry-go-round of children going into care and coming out and back on the streets and going back into care has been stopped. And so that families are able to care safely and permanently for their children. The children that we've been working with through this project number more than 300 over the last 3 years. And 75% of them are still with their families after having returned to their families, which is, compared to children who are not on this program, is a huge success story. So much so that Colombian Social Services are, we hope, about to sign a contract with the Albergue to use this methodology and to support the Albergue to take this work to 900 more families in the Bogota area. Completely without, or almost entirely without, intervention from us or support from us, which is a great achievement, and it's exactly that goal of making sure that an issue that's been neglected is no longer neglected. Children who have been not receiving the support they require are now receiving it, and many more children are receiving that support without, as I said, too much more intervention from us. There's one other very quick example of that I wanted to give you. You probably know also that we've been working for some years with Renacer, Fundación Renacer in Cartagena, on the issue of commercial sexual exploitation of children. The program that we're working with has been very successful in helping children learn about their rights, learning how to protect themselves from the risks of this type of abuse. What's happened this year in Cartagena is that the local education ministry, local education secretary, has taken up this approach and is now attempting to make sure that all schools in Cartagena use this approach with helping children learn how to defend their rights against sexual exploitation. Again, an example of something that we've been working on being taken up by others, and therefore making sure that other children are reached. So there's a few highlights from, I think, what are highlights of what Children of the Andes has done this year, but I'm not going to go on. I'm going to now let you see the film. And then we will dim the lights for a little while.
Colombia está cambiando. Menos personas están viviendo en situación de pobreza. Hay expectativas de acabar el conflicto de 50 años. Cada colombiano tiene derecho a ser optimista, pero no todos los colombianos pueden serlo aún. Colombia sigue siendo uno de los países más desiguales del planeta. COTA está trabajando con los niños más excluidos de las oportunidades que podría traer un cambio en Colombia. COTA y sus fundaciones aliadas están ayudando a que estos niños puedan expresar qué cambios les gustaría para Colombia, a reclamar su derecho a tener una infancia segura y un futuro pleno. A continuación, escucharemos las esperanzas de algunos de estos niños y fundaciones aliadas.
Lo que quiero lograr en este momento es poder culminar mi universidad, que he hecho en este momento la pared por uno que otro inconveniente financiero.
A mí me gustaría ser grande doctora.
Montar mi propio negocio, mi propia empresa de confecciones para ayudar a jóvenes como yo quiero. Tuvimos muchas oportunidades para enseñarles mi arte y lo que yo sé hacer ahora.
A mí me gustaría ser cuando sea grande policía.
Estoy haciendo mi carrera de policía, que es un orgullo portar el uniforme.
De ejercer una carrera, de decir voy a tener un trabajo que pueda yo cumplir con mis obligaciones.
No sé, se me ha metido a la cabeza la idea de que quiero tener una casa. Y se me ha metido y se me ha metido y siento que las cosas se me están dando.
Colombia ha cambiado cierta parte. Aparte de que ya los derechos humanos ya están más encima. Pero en la parte de la educación, no.
Sí ha cambiado un poco en la pobreza porque ahora hay más ayudas.
Ha cambiado y ha cambiado para positivo. Ha tenido un avance en los aspectos económicos, políticos y en la educación para los niños.
Uno ve las noticias y sigue lo mismo de siempre, la violencia. O sea, no solamente la guerra es en el bosque, bueno, lejos, también es en la ciudad. Entonces, no hay diferencia en realidad.
Todos somos supuestamente iguales, ¿no? Ante el mundo, ante la sociedad, pero en realidad, por los temas políticos y económicos no terminamos siendo iguales. Siempre existe un grado de discriminación por tu posición económica o por tu posición social.
Yo siento que los chicos están como en medio de una transición que se está dando aquí en Colombia, dizque de superar la extrema pobreza y de avanzar social y económicamente. Pero yo veo que eso no está pasando realmente para los jóvenes. Puede que esté pasando para algunos sectores de la economía, para algo muy puntual, pero no en lo general.
Las problemáticas principales que enfrentamos los jóvenes de pronto es la educación, como la necesidad por estudiar y no contar con un apoyo financiero para poder acceder.
El problema más grande es el abandono. el abandono y el tiempo de la familia.
Hay madres que por buscar, que por ir a trabajar, de traer el sustento a la casa, se están olvidando de ellos, entonces ese apoyo ellos lo están buscando en la calle, pero en la calle ¿qué hay?
Violencia, el maltrato, todo eso hace que un niño lo perjudique.
Hay que como más concentrarse hacia los jóvenes, porque si nos concentramos más que todo en la guerra, ¿y qué pasa con la juventud?
En su casa muchas veces tienen violencia intrafamiliar, también afuera no tienen espacios públicos en donde estar o habitar.
El objetivo que tenemos es proteger a los niños que están en más alto riesgo y que están menos atendidos y tratar de que sus derechos se mantengan a través del tiempo, de que sus derechos se puedan ejercer. COTA trabaja en 5 áreas principales en las que agrupamos nuestros proyectos. Una de ellas es educación, construcción de comunidades más seguras, apoyo a las familias, preparación para la vida adulta y la quinta es violencia sexual.
Poder llegar a escuchar las voces de los niños. Pienso que esa es una de las tareas fundamentales en las que nos encontramos y es lograr que los niños tengan una voz, es visibilizar a los niños.
Yo aprendí que no hay que maltratar a las personas ni las personas a los niños.
Que cuando nos invitan a hacer cosas malas, decir no.
Los profesores ya están mejorando un poquito la comportación como nos tratan nosotros.
Que las guerras, que la droga, que todo eso ya se extermine para poder ya concentrarse en lo más importante que son la gente.
Que vamos a poder vivir en paz, ir a cualquier parte de Colombia en paz.
Que logremos la paz.
Y yo sé que si hay paz en Colombia cambiarían muchas cosas, habría muchas más oportunidades para las personas que en estos momentos lo necesitan.
Eso sería lo más maravilloso que pudiera pasar en este país, porque sería una nueva generación que crece con otras cosas, con otros conceptos en su cabeza y en su corazón, y eso haría que este país fuera muy diferente.
Que ya no vamos a decir, no, que Colombia la violencia pasa esto, que Colombia es el segundo país o tercer país, cuarto país, que no. Que digan, no, Colombia es bueno, vamos a visitar a Colombia.
Yo siento que estamos en un momento crucial donde de pronto puede haber una lucecita de esperanza, pero que si no se acompaña con una planeación, con una dirección, pues esa lucecita de esperanza va a terminar siendo una lucecita de esperanza solo para grupos pequeños y la mayoría de los grupos se van a quedar excluidos de esos beneficios.
Tenemos los bosques, tenemos los ríos, tenemos las riquezas.
Que muchas los necesitamos, pero hay unos que hay que estar como más enfocados. Y si esas personas ven el apoyo, se van a animar a salir adelante, a que querrán ver muchos frutos.
El oro, las flores, el arroz, el café, no, muchas cosas.
Les diría, no pierdan nunca la esperanza, seamos felices y constantes, porque todo lo que nosotros queremos lo podemos lograr. Solo falta un poco de nuestra parte, un poco de nuestro optimismo y de ver la vida de una manera diferente, ¿sí? Entonces, luchemos por lo que queremos porque lo podemos lograr.
Si no es que nosotros no sabemos aprovechar la riqueza. Si nosotros supiéramos aprovechar la riqueza, pues, fuéramos potencia, ¿no?
Yo estoy segura, pero 100% segura que Colombia va a cambiar. Va a ser un país ejemplar. Estoy 100% segura que todo el esfuerzo que se hace, porque yo sé que se hace mucho esfuerzo, va a servir de algo. Estoy segura.
Thanks very much, everybody. I'm going to introduce a couple more people later, but now we're going to hear straight from Heidi and Natalia.
Well, as Marta said in the film, we agree that this is a crucial moment for Colombia. And we have been talking to our partners about this moment that we're going through. And one of the things that they have said to us and other people in Colombia is that there is a sense that there are shifting forces in terms of economy and political willingness in Colombia. We have seen this in examples, for example, from government agencies, where the infrastructure is being reinforced, and now there is an agency that specializes in working with people who have come out of the illegal armed groups. There is an agency that works with victims of the conflict, and different efforts are being made to try and respond more effectively from government. There is also some shift in political forces because politicians are talking and trying to make coalitions to respond to what is going on right now. And even companies and the private sector is joining forces, for example, in campaigns to respond to what Colombia is going through right now. But we still have a question mark about whether what is happening with economics and politics right now is also happening in the social realm.
What we really don't know in this moment is, for example, if the government is preparing something about education, if they have a strategy about education, a national one. I have a little kid. I want to know if my little kid will go to a school where they will teach her how to relate with different people, how to relate with someone that had a very different childhood. They are also, or well, we don't know if they are preparing, or we are not clear if they are preparing something about job, about opportunities for young people, for all young people, for those ones that have been in the war and for those ones that are in our daily society and what they are going to do when they are younger. We really don't know if they are thinking about the tension that will be when two different communities get together. What I will do when I am in my bus, in your tube, for example, going to my job, and when someone that has been in the war appears and sits down near me. What will be my reaction? I will be in calm, he will forgive me, I will forgive him, for example. Is the government doing something about this? We don't know if this conversation and this process is only about, or we know, it's only about one problem, and it's only about one step, about one group, illegal group. What is happening with the rest, with the other problems that we know that there are. And finally, and for us, one of the most important things, what is doing the government and the society and us for the participation of the kids and the young people in all this process? We are doing something, or this is an adult's process.
So we've been wondering what would happen if eventually a peace agreement is signed. And we can foresee two big things happening. One of them is that a lot of people who had been actors in the war, in FARC more specifically, would come out and be walking amongst us in the cities and trying to adjust to that life. Will they be judged? Will we label them, or will we welcome them? Would they be prepared for finding employment in the cities, for example, which are so different from what they have been doing during the conflict? Are we putting in place educational opportunities for them to make that transition? And do the mechanisms that we have to support them psychologically and to overcome the experiences that they have been a part of, would they be enough? One of the questions we had is particularly, for example, about young people who have been in the armed groups, because all of the people who have held guns in the past have had experiences that I, for myself, haven't had. And they have made decisions about other people's lives. Not just a decision about, do I shoot them, do I kill them, but even other types of roles that children even have been part of when they have been guarding someone that has been kidnapped, when they have been used as an informant for one of the groups that is acting in Colombia. And these are big questions that we have about the challenges we will have as a country when the people return to what we call normal life. And the second big challenge that we see is that all the areas, or some areas that had been in control of the armed groups, will be no longer controlled by them, and this would give access to the state and also to NGOs like us and our partners to go to those areas that for so long have been forgotten and that have received no support because they were so out of reach for us. And that in itself poses big challenges because these communities have been controlled in the past, and it is very likely that when a government agency or a non-governmental organization like us goes to try and implement a program there to support them, they will be fearful of this intervention, and they might be anxious about what our motives are. There might be distrust, and also they might be reticent to participating in what the external world is seeing as options to support them. So those are two big questions that we have been considering. And we have also been asking ourselves, how will we respond, and how will COTA respond to this new scenario?
And when we think about this, we have to think a bit small. We cannot think this problem as huge as it is and thinking that we will solve all the problem. So when we ask ourselves, what can we do and what are we doing, because we are doing, we found two answers. The first one is that we know that all this thing of the process of peace will bring out some kids that are not attend and that we don't know how to attend, or we are learning how to attend. So in this moment we are fundraising for it. We are searching for new projects, for new partners that know how to work with it. We have been talking with a lot of universities, with a lot of companies, with a lot of ONGs that work on it and that are making studies about it. Because we know that there are two important things here, or at least are the things that we are interested in. The ones that have been in the war, that have a specific profile, like Heidi said, and all the relation between sexual violence and the conflict. These kids have been in communities that, or send their kids to the conflict, to the guerrillas, or there have been in communities that have not like the opportunities like all the kids have in the normal communities. So we have been investigating about this, and we already found two nice opportunities that we are like studying a bit more, and probably you will know about them. And the other thing, and for us is very important, is that we don't want to forget the ones that are already forgotten. And we don't want that the news are the ones that guide our activities. In this moment, the news is the process. In this moment, the news are these kids that will make bigger our group of forgotten people. But there are forgotten people that we already attend and that we know that we must continue attending. So in that way, you can see that COTA in this moment or for this year have two lines, and we are doing a lot of things for those two lines. So I would like to tell you about what we are going to do this year with our actual partners, working with those forgotten kids that we already recognize and that we already know how they are. As you remember, and Duncan talked about it, we still work with Albergue Mama Yolanda. The good thing for Albergue Mama Yolanda is that they end a project for 3 years, a 3 years project with Comic Relief Help last year. But in this year, they are developing a new phase of this project. They learn that they have a model that they can transfer to others. They learn that they have a model that they can adapt for different problematics of the families. And as Duncan said, we have a huge opportunity to have a project supported by the public institution that cares about kids in our country. So if this happens, Albergue will do what they dream to do. They will be changing the lines and the politics that the country has for the kids in care. And this, for COTA, is wonderful because we learn how to work with our partner and with a public institution. We had a 3 years process. We went with them to the meetings. We helped them developing the proposals. We helped them learning how to talk with different offices of the same institution to get the support, to get the money, and to get the space to talk and to explain. So we are using this example with others of our partners. The other partner that is going to work with us this year is Tiempo de Juego. You heard about them last year. They also are in a new phase of their project. They had a small project with us before, a pilot. In this moment, we will have with them a 3 years project. And I think the most important thing here is, first, they are going to open more opportunities for the kids to have a positive free time in terms of arts, because they work with us in arts. But they want to transfer this learning and this model to others. I think this is incredible because our partners are learning that they can change the country. They need others like them to change it. So they want to teach. So that is wonderful. And we can help them with that. So it's great. And the last one is Renacer. Renacer will finish this year a 5-year project. And we know, yesterday we were talking about them, and it has been wonderful to work with them all these years, because at the end we can see the results of this. In this moment, the teachers from Cartagena, from a lot of schools in Cartagena, know how to talk about commercial sexual exploitation of children. They know how they have to talk with the kids. They know what kind of opportunities of participation they have to give to the kids. They know how to help a kid no haciéndolo sentir bien, así haya sido víctima.
Making them feel well, even if they have experienced this traumatic event.
Thanks. And they are also working, and they are working alone in some way with the public institution of education in Cartagena. So in this moment, this topic in Cartagena is like floating alone, sometimes without Renacer. So what else you can ask after 5 years of working?
Okay, I also should tell you a bit about our partnerships in Cali. Last year also, if you were here, you heard about Corpo Latin, and Duncan mentioned a bit of what they did last year, 2014. What Corpo Latin has done in the last 2 years when they are working in schools was to talk to children about their rights, how they can assert them, and also talking to them a lot about family violence. And from this year until 2016, they are shifting their attention to violence in schools. And they are shifting their work to adolescents. And they have a program where they hope to train those adolescents as mediation peers for their schools, which is very exciting because it also responds to a law that came out in Colombia in 2013 about violence in school and bullying. So this would probably be a big contribution to schools in Cali. Another partner that we are working with in Cali is Fundación Sí Mujer. We started working with them in 2014, and we supported them to start a youth-friendly sexual and reproductive health service. That has a component of offering medical and psychological attention to children And they finished the pilot in 2014 and developed a service that was useful to schools and children in some of the most impoverished areas in the city. So over the next 3 years, starting from 2015, they are going to have support from Children of the Andes and the big lottery here in Britain to continue consolidating this service, but with 2 important factors that are being added from this year. One of them is to share their model and the services that they are offering with other health providers in Cali, with the hope that those health providers will be inspired to also take some of those new strategies that CIMujer is using and perhaps implement them in their own service. And they will continue to nurture young people's leadership. So they talk about sexual and reproductive health to other peers and their advocacy skills, because there is a lack of information rather about all these issues in Colombia. And we think that it's important to give young people the correct information that they can share with friends instead of sharing information that is half-truths. Finally, we are reconnecting to a previous partner of ours, Fundación Carvajal. We worked with them a few years ago in Cali, but this year we're going to start working with them in Buenaventura, which is a city port in the Pacific of Colombia. You probably heard about that already through COTA. And what we were very interested in working in Buenaventura because of everything that is happening there and the violence in that city. And we had been researching it since 2013. Last year, we worked with Carvajal to develop a proposal, and that's starting this year. What we're going to be doing is something that is called Jornada Escolar Complementaria. Some of you will know that state schools in Colombia have like a half shift. The children don't go to school all day, but just, for example, from 7 to 12. And so what Carvajal is planning on doing with our support is to offer additional educational opportunities for children in 5 schools in the city. This will be in the times when the children are not at school with the regular teachers. They are going to train a group of young people, so not the normal teachers, but a new set of younger people to do activities with them. And we hope that this will really give a reason for young people to be somewhere else than on the street when they are at risk of recruitment and a lot of abuse from some of the armed groups present in Buenaventura, that this would engage them with educational activities in a fun way, and that will encourage them to do better at school, if you could call it that. And crucially, we think that giving young people attention and trying to nurture their potential would enable children to enjoy their childhood and break away from the cycle that their parents have had when they have been made to fulfill adults' roles. And this takes me to a subject that is very important to COTA. And one of the things that we try to do through most of our partnerships, if not all of them, is to break the cycle of exclusion, which we think in a way is self-perpetuating for the people that we work with. And our partners often have to take a number of steps to try and break this cycle. The first step that they often take is to build trust with the communities where they are working. And this entails explaining openly to them what the project is about and how it will work, so they understand it well and they can judge for themselves if they can trust this organization. The second step, which often takes time, is to help people see where there is a problem, because often the families and the communities that we work with don't recognize that a problem is there and that is affecting children. So bringing that out so that everybody can see it and recognize it is an important part of what our projects do. Then the next step is to help communities understand why that is a problem, understand what are the risks that young people are facing if we don't do anything about that problem, and understanding how we can help to prevent those risks or break down those barriers that children and young people are facing. And the last crucial steps that our projects try to encourage is getting people to act about the problem that they now understand. This is one of the hardest steps, and it often takes people involved in our projects effort to do something about the reality that we're trying to change. And it requires them to be very brave, and also requires them to have resilience and to keep trying how to overcome those problems. So just to try and wrap up what we have been sharing with you, I think that there is something that I want you to take away from this evening and this discussion on peace, potential peace in Colombia, and is that we think there won't be one single peace for Colombia as a whole. And I think the government recognizes that that will be hard to aim for. So part of the challenge now is that each municipality and each region in Colombia will have to make their own analysis of the difficulties and what is going on in their area, and try to create solutions for what is affecting the people that live within their limits. And so that makes it more complicated, and it won't be easy. We think that it's probably going to work better in some places than in others. But we think that it's very important for it to work, for peace to really come out in different places. It's very important that we all make efforts to get as many people as possible, including children and young people, in this discussion about the problems that different places in Colombia are facing, and in what we can do to really build peace.
And in that sense, it's good to remember one of the answers that one of our partners gave when we asked about these things that we are talking today. They said that they are worried because it seems like this process is a process of adults. It's not a process of kids and of young people. So we are really thinking what we have to do, what we have to develop, what abilities we have to develop in our kids, which tools we have to give them, which spaces we have to give them for them to live that future that we are deciding for them. You know, we are deciding things today, but they are not included. And they have to live in the future. We will not be there. So what we have to give them for them to live that. And it's useful, an example of tiempo de juego. Tiempo de juego, as you know, receive kids and work with them in football, in arts, in music, in drama. There is a girl that started with tiempo de juego when she was small. She started in football, and she started going there like a normal kid, and she started participating a bit more and bit more. And in this moment, she is a worker for Tiempo de Juego. She is, like Tiempo de Juego calls her, a gestora. She helps little kids to do their homeworks and to learn to read and to write. And one day, I invite my partners to a meeting, a partners meeting, about disability and how we have to include people with disability in our projects. And the director of Tiempo de Juego, Esteban, decided to invite this girl to the meeting. She thought that she was going to learn. She thought that she would teach anything. But when she arrived and when she started giving the opinion, and when we started talking with her, and she started to give solutions and tell stories, we realized that she was the most important person in that meeting. She is from Cazuca, that is the place where Tiempo de Juegos project is going, our project. And she all the time gave real examples of her community. She gave examples of her family. He knew how their community work with disability persons, or how they don't show the persons that have disabilities. She said what needs have Tiempo de Juego as a construction, as a building for these kind of persons. So we realized that giving her that initial opportunity of playing football, giving her the opportunity of deciding how she wants to play football, of deciding if she wants to go to music, to drama, to receive her opinions, to receive her hopes of being a worker in tiempo de juego, are small but huge opportunities for this girl to be in that moment with all the directors of our partners sitting there talking and giving us the most important ideas and the most important solutions. So how we are going to do that? How we are going to give all these kids the opportunity? It's not only to give them a space to talk, you know, probably it is not that. Probably is that we have to give them, or to see how they relate with others, to see how they can forgive others, to see how they can explain others their history. And this is the second thing that we want to tell you and that our partners really told us. We need to think about our life. We need to, in Spanish, it's a word, but in English, the translated is not so good. In Spanish is, we have to resignificar. In English is giving a new meaning. I have to give a new meaning to my life. I have to give a new meaning to my history, my family history. I have to give a new meaning to my job. I need to think what I'm going to do if I want to help others. I need to think what is the image of country that I always give and that possible I have to change because it is not the same. And that is the only way that we can work in this hopeful but strange and particular situation that we are working in Colombia and living in Colombia in this moment. So that is our year. that will be our year. How we resignificamos our job, our life, and our partner's job.
Thank you. Thank you both very much. I hope you all found that as fascinating as I did. A couple of things I'd like to talk to you about. But now we're gonna move to asking you to ask us questions. Before we do that, there's a couple of people I've been very remiss in not introducing. One of whom, sitting on the end here, this is Jen, very, very patiently sitting there without, you know, with being patient with my rudeness, not introducing you. Jen is our programs manager, and she manages our programs from London, and she has a lot to say, so please ask her lots of questions. Don't ask me any, that's my advice. And to my right, we have, stand up, I don't like to sit down. This is Julia.
I'm still taller than her.
Julia is a trustee of Children of the Andes and has been several years now. But she is also an educational psychologist, child participation expert, and does these wonderful graphic illustrations of our discussions and other people's. So that's what Julia is doing now. And she will continue to do that. And at the end, I want you all to come and have a look and see if she's got it. Anyway, so now the idea is that you get to ask us some questions.
Or to let us know how you found the film, which I'd love to hear. Also.
The film was great. So were the presentations. And it seemed a very sophisticated film. So we don't need this, do we? I think the film was fantastic. I think we really got a sense of these young people becoming Colombian citizens of the future, which is part of your story. I thought the presentations, not on the film, were also fantastic. And this sense of your hope for a change in Colombia, but the need to adapt to that new context yourselves included, seem to me a very powerful message. So this has been a great evening so far, and will surely continue so. The thing I'm struggling with a bit, well, I like very much the central theme of young people speaking of themselves about the Colombia they want to create, and not just expressing their hopes, but learning the skills of youthful citizenship to build a new Colombia. And I think that underlying message of all the different kinds of activities you're talking about seems to be a very powerful one for 2015 Colombia, especially if we can make more of it. And working with the young people to strengthen their voice and contribution, I think is central to all of this. And it seems that's what COTA is about, so I'm happy to be here tonight. The thing I'm struggling with a bit is, I think we have 2/3 of the COTA staff in Colombia sitting at the front, Heidi and Natalia. So that means there's one other person in Colombia, I think. And some of the organisations that we saw speaking here also are 1 or 2 person organisations working with lots of children, like Marta and Chiple Efe. Seems quite a frail base on which to engage with a radically different Colombia. And I haven't clear in my mind yet how best to use that modesty of resource against the scale of Colombian challenge to build a new society after half a century of conflict. So there's a question in there somewhere, but we have to work out what it was.
Well, I can struggle. There's definitely several questions in there, David. Thank you very much. I think one of the answers to one of the questions, not necessarily the answer you want, or not necessarily the question you want either, but one of the answers is that we can only do so much. And I think the first thing as an organisation we have to realise is that we're not super women or men, and that we have to be realistic about what we as an organisation, what our partners as organisations can achieve. But I think if we do what you just said, which is with all the organisations and all the children that we work with, if we enable them to speak up and speak out about the things which are important to them and help them develop mechanisms to actually make a difference and to actually have power over the things which happen to them and to their country, then that's the best we can do. And I think some of the examples that we've given about the way that our work has affected policy and has affected the way that institutions who have power think about the role of children and excluded families in the public sphere. If we can do that, then we're on the way to doing as much as we can with the resources we have available. I thought you were going to say, I have a check here for an extra office in Colombia. Please, I wasn't going to ask you for money, but since you mentioned it, David. Thanks, David. Any more answers to any of those questions that David asked?
Also, if our partners teach others to do what they know to do, they are like expanding their actions, you know? And they know that. They know that they can't work alone. And we work for that. We all the time try to do networks between our partners, but between others. And we try them to be important actors of those networks, not only participants. We need them to be the ones that guide the networks. And for example, Tiempo de Juego guides the networks where they are. Also Albergue Mamá Yolanda, also Renacer. Wherever I go and I speak about Renacer, Tiempo de Juego, and Albergue, everybody knows what the director of each one of them think. So they are the ones that guide these networks, and that is their way to exploit, to expand. Yes, but I don't know, bueno, no importa, explotar el tema. That I think it's part of our work and it's part of their aims.
I would say that COTA supports a range of organizations, and some of the ones that you saw in the film are our smallest partners. And it's often something that gets us talking because it's this different profile of organization that we work with. And the way that we relate to them, if they are small or really big and corporate, has to change. And so we're always trying to reflect and to get a good balance between them. But I want to emphasize that what those organizations, regardless of the size, do with young people matters. Because you saw it in the film. I mean, getting young people to think this is something that Tiempo de Juego tells us is one of the most important things that they do. Even if you were born and are growing in Casuca, where a lot of people expect you to end up in jail or in criminality, their work is to try and open a window so that those young people can see there is a potential to create a different future for them. And remember that we all created this conflict, or our parents and grandparents did, and we are all continuing it. So we need everybody to think about this and what they can contribute to it, and encouraging them to do something about it. This is an aspect that also many of our projects have. You know, the young people that we work with are not privileged, but often our partners encourage them to think about how they are sometimes privileged in comparison to young people that don't get help, and that because they have a responsibility to also spread kindness to other young people. So creating change at an individual level is important because collectively we can achieve big things.
The exit of corpolating is not only of corpolating.
She means the success.
The success. ¿Qué dije?
Dale.
Sorry. The éxito, dije. Ay, perdón. Is that the ones that work with corpolating, the young people that work with corpolating, tell others about corpolating. They said, look, there is a line where you can call and they can help you. If you are sad, if you have an urgency, they can help you. Go, call. And the other one calls. So we know that we are doing a small work, but if we do a good work, this starts to go on and on only by talking and giving examples.
Hi, yeah, I found that the video was, fantastic. It really was a great sense of seeing the young people kind of very empowered. I thought that was great. My question is somewhat linked to the last one. We saw lots of examples of how your different partners are learning from each other and employing different methodology in different parts, which is great. My question is more to do with the government support that you might be receiving in one, for example, with Renacer in Cartagena, whether, for example, different departments of the government are, using, the examples that the other departments of government have set, whether there is collaboration in that sense.
I think that we are making efforts, and the government is making efforts, but the challenge is really big. So, for example, in the last couple of years, you have seen the emergence of a new organism that is quite high up in terms of the structure of the Colombian government, and those that are here who work for the Colombian government can tell you a lot more about that when you go out. It's called Departamento para la Prosperidad Social, Social Prosperity Agency, and they bring together a lot of agencies of, for example, the ones that I mentioned at the beginning, trying to promote inclusion and effect social change. And one interesting thing that they are trying to do is not just to get different organizations within government to understand and collaborate with what others are doing, but also to engage as the private sector, that includes non-profits and companies, to align our work with what has been set as policy for government. And this is a big challenge because often you can do your own thing, and it's often difficult to get the government to understand what you have been doing, and for government to explain us what they have been doing and so on. So I don't know if that answers your question.
There's a mic coming behind you.
The film and the presentations were very good. Congratulations on them. I expect no less, having come to, I don't know, many of these, but it's good to see that you can introduce new things, put new angles on what you do. I think for me, particularly this evening, I'm struck by how optimistic you feel about change in Colombia, the potential for change and where things may go. I hope you know that change will come and that there will be real peace. I'd certainly back you on that. I was struck by something Natalia said about the footballer in Tiempo de Juego, and your realization that actually here was a child who could tell you more about the community maybe than the adults around. Now, I know from various things that obviously COTA on the ground and partner organizations talk to children, but I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more, because there's still this sort of thing in my mind that, wait a minute, they were presumably surprised by what a child could tell you. Could you just tell us a bit more about how you try to involve children in the, let's say, the management and direction of projects?
Well, in this moment, she's not a child. In this moment, she is like 20 or 18, 19, I don't know. Well, that is something that we ask to our partners all the time. And they usually say, yes, we ask our users what they want. They evaluate our last process, and we are including their opinions in the project. So sometimes we start with that answer. Other times we go under, and we really, because also our donors ask for that. They ask for procesos participativos.
Participative process.
Yes, in the design of the projects. And they have to show us workshops where they ask things. Also, surveys where they gave their opinion. So there are like two possibilities. We really start with a project that we know that is designed with the users, or we start with a process that our partner says, yes, I know it's important, we did it. We have their opinions. And of course they have their opinions, because they cannot continue doing things that are not useful and that didn't impact the people. And during the development of the project, all the time that we are with them, giving them company, solving problems that they have, also answering for things that the state asked them to do, we start telling them that they have to include kids. What are they saying? Did the family give a good opinion of this process? Are they assisting or they are not assisting? We also work with them in a very important thing that is our political protection.
Child protection policy.
All our partners have to have that. And if they don't have it, we have to develop it during the time that we are together. And when you start talking about that, you start talking about the kids, and you start talking about how they feel, what they do, where they are, when they come, when they don't come, what is the problems that they have, why they don't come. They are working, they need to go to the school, they need to take care of their brothers. So if you all the time are thinking, which is my participant? What is the profile of my participant? What they need? In what terms I have to talk to them? What strategies I have to use in the activities at home or in the institution? If you are thinking in all that, you are doing initial participation process. But we know that some of our partners need a bit more of work, because in Colombia there is like confusion about participation sometimes, and the state asks for that in that sense. They ask, look, you have to put together all the kids, ask them about something, and write down what they answer. Or ask them to make a paint and like analyze what they paint and communicate that as the voice of the kids. And that is not participation, you know? Participation is that you can give your opinion. Participation is that you have in your brain enough info to know the story of something, to know the different chances that you have, to understand the other one, and your brain to make a relation when you are in a situation. If the kid can take a decision when he is in a situation, in a specific situation, problematic or not problematic, deciding if water or Coke, or deciding if hitting or talking, that is when you finally did something about relationships, participations, recognizing their difference, giving the opportunity of, look, relate yourself with others in the way you can do it with the abilities that I help to develop in you. But we know that our partners need a bit more of conscious. You know, we think they do it, but they probably are not conscious of how they do it. So probably they cannot follow the change. So that's part of our challenge.
How did you?
Yes, I just wanted to complement what Natalia was explaining with some examples that I think are worth mentioning. One that happened quite recently is Si Mujer, because the success of the service they were developing is in making it in a way that responds to young people's interests and what they want from it. So since we started developing the pilot that we did last year, they've made every effort to consult a range of young people, not just the groups, but you know, it went to different organizations. And so young people have had a say in things like what kind of furniture they want, and they went for pubs, what the service should be called, and they are still thinking about it, so the service doesn't have a name yet, what the logo should be, and all this consultation process that they developed is turning in what is now going to be crucial for the next 3 years, which is an advisory group from young people that feeds back to the professionals on how this service is getting it right, because what we want is that it is an example to other service providers. And so taking the time and creating the opportunity to hear what young people say is very important. I think that another case, and before I give you more examples, I think it's important to say that it's different depending on what organization you have in mind. Some organizations are very committed and very capable of doing that. So, for example, our partner FFF, where you saw a lot of young people in the film from that organization, is very interested in handing their organization over to young people eventually. And they've had experiences of a young person who was a former service user being their chairman and their active director, which is, for our partners, quite big steps. At the moment, the young person is no longer the acting directors. And another organization that has that aim of handing over to young people who have gone through their programs is Tiempo de Juego. And that's why they have this evolving process of you're a participant, then you can become a monitor, and then you can become a gestor. And I think there is some further steps that they are yet to develop in that process. And finally, I just wanted to mention our Corpolating, our partner, which is the helpline for young people in Cali. Because when we start a partnership, one of the things that we discuss with these organizations is what they want to get from us other than implementing the service, the project itself. And we call those things partnership objectives. And one of our current partnership objectives that we need to meet by the end of 2016 with Corpolating is that they wanted to use us as a soundboard, because they recognize the importance of participation, and they are trying to do that in their projects, but they want to structure it in something that is a policy that they can refer back to in their daily work. And it's very exciting for us, having had the opportunity of doing that similar process of thinking about your processes and putting them down in writing, which is not what Colombians tend to do, that they want to make take that step. It's really, I think, a sign of how committed they are, and they want us to walk that line with them, which is very exciting.
Thank you. I hope that went some way to answering the question. As always, we're running out of time for questions, especially since I wanted to say a couple of other things quickly. Does anybody is there a last question from the floor?
I'm fascinated to know how you actually structure your day's work. Are you constantly visiting people, or are they visiting you? Or how is it all the communication?
¿Cómo es el día a día de tu trabajo? ¿Vas a visitar a la gente o ellos vienen a visitar?
Both of us, both of them. I visit them and they visit me, but I prefer to visit them. I am alone in Bogota. She has a company in Cali. So I need company, you know, and I need to talk with others. And the others, my partners in the job are my partners. So I go to visit them. I visit more albergue. Mamá Yolanda en tiempo de juego. I visit them when I have to talk about reports. I visit them because they invite me to activities. I visit them because I want to go to see what they are doing. And in other moments, I also go to Cartagena to do the same. I also go to Chinchina near Manizales to do the same. I travel all around. But in the other moments, I do important things. In this moment, we are having a lot of meetings with Colombian companies or Colombo-Británicas, companies Colombo-Británicas, to know what they are doing with social responsibility. And to know how they are using their money for social projects, because we know that there is a possibility for us to fundraise and to help them to find good organizations to work on. We are also having a lot of meetings with the public sector, and I am in Bogota and the principal officers are there, so if someone of Cali needs a meeting, I go for the meeting. So I do that, and I am all the time also talking with the people here in London. We have a lot of meetings by Skype. That is not my best thing. I hate to be far away from people, but that's the way it is. So that's my day. I talk all the time also with them by Skype. We ask each other things. We help each other. That's what I do.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Natalia. Thank you. You've brilliantly brought me on to the thing that I wanted to just mention,
okay.
Which was before in a minute when I've stopped talking, and it will be maybe a minute and a half. We're going to go and have a glass of wine outside, and you can please feel free to ask us any more questions you have. But Natalia mentioned the fact that one of the things that she does, and one of the things that Hardy does as well, is go and talk to potential funders in Colombia. We are striving to increase our sources of funding from Colombia as well as here. And that requires us, obviously, to have a public profile in Colombia. We don't have a very high public profile in Colombia yet. We have a high profile with our partners and with some institutions, but we don't have a public profile to speak of. As many of you will know, we started in 1991 on the back of a documentary that was made about a foundation called Fundación Niños de los Andes, which was run by a man called Jaime Jaramillo, and he was rescuing, that was the word he would certainly have used, children who are living in the sewers in Bogota. Since that time, we have become an independent organization, and we are totally independent from Fundación Niños de los Andes, which still exists in Colombia. Now, when we are presenting ourselves in public in Colombia, people see Children of the Andes. Y dicen, Niños de los Andes. And they think we are the same organization. We are not. So, what do we do about this? The conclusion that it's easy to come to, and which we have come to, is that we need a new name. We need a new name in Colombia, and in effect that means we need a new name here. So over the coming year, we, and possibly sooner, you will be hearing from us on this subject. We will be wanting to hear what you have to say about what our new name might do and what it might be. So for the moment, I'm not going to say anything more about that, but suffice it to say that when you come to this event next year, it might say something different on my t-shirt. Well, my t-shirt might not even be here. Anyway, so a couple of last things. Please come. Many of you know about our annual Thames Walk. It's going to happen again this year on the 3rd of May in Richmond Park. It's a fantastic event where we can all get together, have a little bit of a walk around in the sun, and it raises very valuable funds for us. So please come to that. Also, become, if you're not already, a COTA promoter, COTA promota. We're having our next promoter meeting is on Saturday, 21st of March at our office. So it'd be lovely to see, maybe not all of you there, because imagine what it would cost in biscuits. But it would be lovely to see some of you there. And the last thing to say is in the what's it called, gallery? What do we call it? Terrace. The terrace. There is an exhibition which has been made by young people at Fundación Si Mujer, and it is a graphic representation of their understanding that we've just been talking about, their understanding of what reproductive and sexual health and rights means to them. So you may find that all rather interesting. I hope you do. Last thing to say is thank you to everybody. Thank you to Jen and Natalia and Hayley and Julia and Vic for organising the whole thing, and all the volunteers. And thank you all for coming. You have a feedback form, I think, that you've all been given. Please, if you can find it in you, fill it in and tell us, anonymously what you think of this evening. Thank you very much. Good. That's looking great. Defending children's rights in Colombia. No, but it changes all the time. Good to see you.